When you see transit in American media, it tends to feel low status, lesser, neglected. Think of that fight scene in Collateral, set on the LA Metro, a setting chosen for its empty, alienating character.
I read about this guy gets on the MTA here, dies. 6 hours he's riding the subway before anybody notices his corpse doing laps around LA, people on and off sitting next to him. Nobody notices.
Despite being set in LA, it took 3 seasons of Modern Family for the LA Metro to appear.
I love that we're doing this. It's important for her to explore the city she lives in.
So much diversity. Keep your wallet in your front pocket.
Lily loses her bunny on the Metro, and who finds it? No, a homeless person, because, you know, transit's for the poor and cars are for the rich.
Let her hate us. You turned out great.
I did, didn't I?
You're a big lawyer.
And how can we forget that time Lisa took the bus on The Simpsons?
Clean, reliable public transportation, the chariot of the people, the ride of choice for the poor and very poor alike.
All this paints one very clear picture. Public transport doesn't matter. Last December, we visited San Francisco. We rode on BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, to get from the airport to the downtown, and these are the pictures I took. At 2 on a Wednesday afternoon. Entire stations were complete ghost towns. Even the busiest stations felt quiet. For a while now, I've been showing my audience this list. If Sydney was a North American city, Sydney trains would rank 3rd in patronage in North America. Look, our public transport is great, but it's not sensational on a global scale. Yet, we beat most of the US because in many American cities, transit is a joke. But why? Let's try answer that today by exploring BART. To be clear, BART is actually a pretty good transit system, at least by American standards. But in my opinion, you can learn a lot about the worst of a country by judging its best. After all, BART only had 51 million users in 2024, making its 212-kilometre network just about as busy as Sydney's 60-kilometre T2 line, despite the Bay Area having twice Sydney's population. Why is barely anyone using it? BART links the Bay Area's 3 major cities, San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. Well, okay, more like 2.5 cities, we'll get back to that. BART is 212 kilometers long with 5 lines and 50 stations. Yeah, that's not enough stations. That represents an average stop spacing of 4.2 kilometers. At the end of the line, the distance between Antioch and Pittsburgh Center is almost 10 kilometers. And this isn't entirely confined to edge of city stations. The gap between Lake Merritt and Fruitvale stations, both close to downtown Oakland, is 4.4 kilometers. With stations this far apart, you need a car to get to them. That just makes it more likely you'll just drive all the way to your destination. Most people are willing to walk around 800 meters maximum to their local station, which means that a good subway system should have stop spacings roughly 1 to 1.5 kilometers apart, not 4.2 kilometers. Station spacings are this big because even though BART literally stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit, it's really rapid transit in name only. It was quite unashamedly designed as a commuter rail system. Big station spacings whisk commuters faster to work in the downtown cores of SF and Oakland. But if BART only exists to get to work, you're wedding a city of 9 million to their cars for non-work journeys. Okay, let's acknowledge the obvious. BART is a commuter rail system for getting to work, and the Bay Area is famously full of tech employees that have mostly worked from home since COVID. Well, that's why barely anyone's using BART. Boom, video over. Thing is, that only feels like part of the story. There are many other issues here. Frequencies leave a lot to be desired. A rapid transit system, even one just pretending to be a rapid transit system, should probably run trains at least every 10 minutes. Not BART. On all lines, trains only run every 20 minutes, and that's at all times, off-peak and on-peak. Abysmal. Granted, there's a lot of interlining on BART, but I mean, not every line goes where you might be going, and I just don't think this fully negates the frequency issue. Land use is something I'm increasingly hammering home on my channel, because in my opinion, it defines a transit system. You need volume in the form of density to encourage people to use transit. If everyone lives in detached houses, the average person is too far from the station, so they'll probably drive. Well, instead of density, most BART stations have parking. Daly City is peak American transit. The I-280 interstate to the north, 2 massive car parks on either side of the station, and single-family dwellings as far as the eye can see. In fact, in general, BART stations just seem to be so badly located. A decent chunk of BART runs alongside highways or within highway medians. It's cheaper to build, but it makes good land use harder since so much land is already used by the neighbouring highway. However, the Bay Area actually has been building a lot of density around some of its stations. Dublin Pleasanton Station was surrounded mostly by car parks just 10 years ago. Now, there's apartments. That's a win. I do suspect that's more because densifying a full 56 kilometers from San Francisco was a path of least resistance, but I digress. The Bay Area is trying. Something else must be wrong here. Operator fragmentation. BART isn't all that the Bay Area has. They've also got Caltrain, VTA, Muni, and a bunch of others. And these all operate independently of one another. No single transport body coordinates transport across the Bay Area. What this results in is a confusing system of transit that feels illegible, simultaneously trying to accomplish everything instead of complementing itself. Caltrain is also a commuter rail system like BART, albeit following a mostly different corridor. But there's a BART station called San Bruno, and a Caltrain station called San Bruno, 1 kilometer apart from each other. Yeah, 'cause that's not confusing at all. The Market Street subway runs BART trains on one level and Muni trains on another, but instead of being able to transfer between levels, you gotta go up into the concourse, exit the fare gates, then tap back into the fare gates for the other service, all because Muni and BART don't have one unified fare scheme. In New South Wales, despite there being different operators, that's practically invisible to the customer because all our transport is overseen by Transport for New South Wales. That's statewide, not just citywide. That allows for coordination of timetables, budgets, branding, interchange design, and purpose. Credit where credit's due. Muni is pretty good. Muni comprises light rail and trolley buses in SF. Patronage is 146 million. It's way higher than BART because it's a denser system used for everyday trips, not just a commuter system. Same can't be said for Caltrain, a 31 station commuter rail line between San Jose and San Francisco that only got 9.1 million users in 2024 to 25. The VTA light rail is an extensive 60 station, 68 kilometer light rail system in San Jose that got just 4.9 million users in 2024. This is barely higher than the Canberra light rail, a system with 6-fold less stations in a city 4 times smaller. The Silicon Valley is losing to Canberra. How are you losing to Canberra? No offense to the people who live in Canberra. But look, okay, poor land use is certainly a part of the story here, but I suspect there's something more systemic going on. But back to BART, we gotta talk about all the annoying design choices. BART's yellow line runs all the way to Antioch. Well, hang on, wait a second, change trains at transfer platform? Yeah, that's right, you gotta change a bit west of Pittsburgh Bay Point Station at a transfer platform from the standard BART train to a smaller diesel train called e-BART to go the last 15 minutes to Antioch. This might make BART the only metro in the world to run diesel trains. And that's despite it being called e-BART, because, you'd think the E means electric, but no, the E just means East Contra Costa County. Then there's the BART Airport link, where trains make a slow tight turn into and then out of SFO, before continuing south to Millbrae. And then there's the mind-numbing Silicon Valley BART extension. They wanted to extend it from Fremont to San Jose, and they got so close, before deciding, yep, North San Jose, guys. North San Jose is good enough. Okay, fine. If you really want us to build this downtown San Jose, we'll do it, but we'll open it in 2036. Is that okay? All of these design quirks, and arguably the very reason why BART is struggling, comes down to money. In Australia, public transport is funded at the state level, with support provided by the federal government. There are small exceptions. Brisbane, Metro, for example, was built by Brisbane City Council. But this exception is the norm in America. The feds and state government don't step in to fund transit projects, at least not by default, leaving it to local cities to figure it out. Contra Costa County, where BART runs, could only afford the extension once voters approved a sales tax increase. Imagine Hillshire voters had had to go to the polls to pass a tax to fund the Sydney Metro Northwest. And even after all that, they could only afford a smaller vehicle's standard gauge diesel extension, resulting in poor outcomes for customers through no real fault of the county. But why is it so hard to fund transit in America? America used to have some of the best transit in the world, but they decimated all of that in favor of cars and interstates starting in the 50s.
It's an American highway! It's as beautiful as I imagined it!
Cars were and still are very affordable in America, but more importantly, they're effectively an American status symbol. America was built for driving, which has not only made its cities sprawling hellscapes, but made it such that you kinda have no choice but to drive. Those who literally cannot drive are limited to the poor and homeless. Culture shifted such that even in places like the Bay Area, where transit was mostly usable, if not flawed, people still preferred to drive. Getting funding for transit then became really difficult. It wasn't as politically popular anymore because parts of the electorate now saw it as not helping them, but just helping those at the bottom. That lack of funding leads to the infrequent services and poor design choices that keep people from using transit, which reinforces the idea that transit is only for the disadvantaged. And the cycle continues. In Chicago and New York, we saw systems with solid bones but decaying infrastructure that felt dated and unloved. We saw someone rolling a joint on the Chicago L. It was only when we went to Toronto, riding the very busy egalitarian Toronto subway, that I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, using public transport doesn't have to feel sketchy or second class. That's just an American thing. It's sobering as an Australian noting how Americans view public transport as indistinguishable from crime and homelessness. Someone on Reddit posted that transit YouTubers suck because they don't talk about the almost entirely American problem of crime on transit.
What frustrates me is liberals want you to ride public transportation. They hate cars. Public transportation has become an epidemic of violence and homelessness across the country. We have to look at them and say, well, maybe it's appropriate that we start pulling some of that money back because I don't think the American taxpayer wants to pay for the homelessness and criminal element that harm little 23-year-old girls like this.
Ultimately, many sad deaths have happened on public transport in the US. There's no denying that. But there's also no denying that, statistically speaking, you're way worse off driving. The solution here is obvious to me. America needs stronger social welfare so that the homeless aren't forced to seek shelter on trains. That one's a much deeper systemic problem. So in lieu of that, transit systems need much more funding. Federal and state funding to avoid situations like BART. Well-built, frequent transit will make more people use transit, which will make it more appealing, which will make funding it more politically appetizing. Remember that Caltrain stat I told you earlier? What I didn't tell you was that this was an increase of almost 50% on 2023 to 24 because they electrified Caltrain, increased frequencies, and started running faster, more comfortable electric trains. Patronage is still low compared to Sydney, but Rome wasn't built in a day. This is how you shift a culture, not overnight, but brick by brick. Ultimately, America's problem with public transport comes down to a belief, one way or another, that you only catch the train if you can't drive. But that's just not true. Public transport isn't for the poor, it's for everyone.
Barangaroo Aussie Pies. What do you have to say, Amy?
Wow, so excited!
You feel like a taste of home again?
Yeah, Why'd they choose Barangaroo though?
You know, there is a certain irony that they chose Barangaroo to represent Australia when Barangaroo is the most bougie district of Sydney.
I know. Barangaroo's upscale steakhouse that costs $100 per head. Yeah.
Oh yes, all the quintessentially Australian places like Sydney and Perth and Melbourne and Brisbane and Waipa. I love Waipa. Not the most Australian place ever. Okay, it probably is, but like where the hell is it?